Are you a man who is feeling the weight of the challenges in your life? Are you feeling crushed or pinned down? Or maybe you're not that person, but you know someone and you're worried about them. If either one of those situations are true, you're going to want to watch today's episode because Geoff Moore knows exactly what that feels like. And you may be surprised to hear his story. Geoff is one of the sweetest men I've ever met because this is actually our second attempt at recording this podcast because the first time someone might have forgot to hit record. But he's back and he's willing, and I can't wait till you hear Geoff's story. Let's talk about it. Hello,
Hello.
you. How are you doing?
Good. Sandy, how are you?
Awesome. Did you notice record is already on?
I noticed.
I'm not taking any chances this
It's
time.
good because
Okay, so
well, yeah, it's good. It's all good.
yeah, it was fun hanging out with you, but you should have seen my face when I realized like,
It's
oh my,
fine.
okay,
I'm
so oh sorry, go.
no, I just said I'm a relaxed person. To be honest, what I'm hoping to do, and I'll have to get permission from my podcast guests so far, but I would like to do a blooper reel. And I think that may be the most popular podcast I've ever had. Maybe that's a way to promote these things. Like I've had some ridiculous situations, and then, you know, the fact that the podcast that we did the first time wasn't, recorded, that's, it's a nice story that people can have a good laugh about.
Exactly. So my daughter does my video editing and I've definitely screwed things up different times. And I've told her instead of just cutting it out, save it. We've got this folder of all these things that are just going in there. And like you, I think around Christmas time, I want to release the most epic, ridiculous video ever
Absolutely.
created. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I can see that it is really hot in my office today. And I
Okay.
don't want to put on my fan. Can you hear the fan in the background?
No.
Okay, so maybe it'll be okay because without it, I'm going to melt right in front of your eyes. So, what I want to do is I'm going to do the brief little intro and then we'll go into it. Okay,
Sure. Yeah.
you're ready?
Ready.
Awesome. Okay. Bonjour, Mishko Paganon Quain Adishnakas Mangdodem. Hi, everybody. It's Sandy Boucher here once again with my Walking My Talk podcast. I have been saying for years that Indigenous and non Indigenous Canadians can work together, can have amazing relationships, and can learn from each other and support each other, whatever we happen to be doing. And last year I realized wait a minute, I can prove this. So I created this podcast so I could introduce you to the amazing men and women I know as friends and colleagues, people that I love working with, and they're not all Indigenous, which is the point. Now, in the opening that I recorded earlier, I mentioned to you how amazing I think Geoff is. The fact that we tried taping this once and someone might have forgot to hit record. And Geoff is so sweet that he agreed and came out again, and you can bet record is on this time. So, hello again, Geoff. Thank you so much for showing up.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invite, Sandy. I'm happy to be here speaking with you.
Awesome. Yeah, like I said, you should have seen my face when I had to send you that email. It's like, how exactly do I word this? You're not going to
That's okay.
believe what I did.
No
Okay.
problem.
So, in the opening, which you haven't seen, you will see when this video comes out. But I, right off the hop, asked if the viewer was a man who feels challenged or weighted down or pinned down by the challenges in their life. And I shared how you know exactly what that feels like. And that's why I want them to watch this video. Or if they are, that doesn't apply to them, but they know someone that they're worried about, I really encourage them to watch this episode. So, why don't you just tell the viewers your story, who you are, what you do, and what brought you to this podcast?
Sure. No, that's great. Well, thanks, Sandy. Um, well, I'm a proud father of four grown-up children, grown-ups now. I'm grateful to have had an interesting career where I've focused on sustainable and impact investing. So, and I joke with people, I think everybody I've ever met is more than capable of counting to two or three, and I think on a good day I can too. And so, impact investing and sustainable investing has more than one objective. It's not only about making money, but it's to contribute to environmental and social and governance issues and target some of the bigger challenges of our time. So I'm happy to be involved in that. Personally, going back to 2012, I tried to be an entrepreneur with a firm in that area, and it was quite early. And surprisingly to me, after, at the end of this, I ended up being hospitalized for 5 weeks, and then I had quite a long healing journey. And I'm not afraid or ashamed to talk about that. And I learned a lot, and I tried to create an initiative based around that, which I believe is applicable to everybody in the world in a simple way, as a very simple way. But then each person can look in the mirror and see how they believe it is relevant to them or not, right? And so when I was in the hospital, and just to say, I had undiagnosed severe sleep apnea, which is a big problem for people, and something that people, doctors should make people more aware to get that checked, especially if they're like a severe snorer and stuff. It can be dangerous, and it also doesn't allow people to get into a deep sleep. So that makes them a lot less efficient. It's very difficult when you have other stresses. It adds together. And but to get more specific, the key point that my doctor told me, which made me feel a little bit better and improve my self-talk, took a bit of weight off me, was, don't feel so badly. Everybody in the world has a breaking point, and you managed to find, one of yours. And he said, look, not everybody will hit it in their lifetime, but depending on what happens to you, everybody is vulnerable as a human being to, to breaking. And so a year before, I wouldn't have agreed with that maybe, or it would have been like a foreign concept to me if somebody said, "Do you think you could ever end up hospitalized?" You know, with severe depression and with a breakdown, and I would have really taken offense probably because I would have had a different, old school mindset thinking, look, I'm a father, I'm still competing in sports. I've done relatively well in business. I care about people. I have people who love me, and I'll never happen.
Mhm.
And yet it did, right? So what the doctor said made me think, how can I explain it to people like myself a year before and others who would be far removed from ever thinking, that they think it's about weakness. There may be cultural reasons why they think that's impossible. And so I came up with a bench press metaphor, which is the kind of core origin of the concept of being pinned. And then my organization Pins a Purpose. And all it is you take a 45-pound barbell, which is as light as you can be, you're on your back, and you do as many repetitions as you can until the last repetition cannot move from your chest. If you stop early, you didn't complete it, and you're disqualified. If you run a marathon or a half marathon and you stop 10 feet before the finish line to say hi to your friends and walk off and celebrate, you actually are disqualified. You did not complete the exercise. So by doing that, no matter who you are in any community around the world, man or woman, unless you have a disability that doesn't allow you to even lift once, you will get pinned. There's no doubt about it. And I had a guy on, I do my own podcast, and I had a gentleman named Hugo Giral, who was once named the strongest man in the world. And, he had no problem in saying, of course, if he's forced to, although he's superhuman in certain ways, he is human, like all of us in other ways. So what the purpose of that is, okay, you can demonstrate that experientially. You can give talks with it. Anybody can do it, regardless of where you are in the world. I'll add to it. I had another group on my podcast from Uganda. They're using this metaphor now. They're doing this in universities because they've had some, you know, suicide challenges and other things. And in their culture, it is seen to be a sign of weakness. But I did say, look, I'm not talking about your culture, which is I'm not from there. I'm not aware of all the details. I've got no comment on cultural mores about this, but I can tell you that it's a fact every single person in Uganda, if they do the exercise, by definition, they're going to get stuck. And then you talk about why other people in real life are pinned and why they may be ashamed to talk about it. But it is our common humanity that we're not superhuman. And sometimes you need to put your hand up. So I'll stop there for a second because there's many more parts to this. But it's just that I was surprised that I ended up being hospitalized. It was a painful journey. I'm an entrepreneur again, and I know you are too, Sandy. That's not easy. There are ups and downs, great ups and downs, and great challenges sometimes. And but I was very determined because it was a difficult experience to see how I could simplify one reference point. This is not a magic panacea for anything. It's just one reference point to try to lighten the load, so to speak, on people with their self-talk by realizing their common humanity and that, it's there's no shame when you're really getting pinned. We all have to take care of ourselves and do as much as we can, etc. But there are times when it's beyond that. And so it's an easy thing to understand, I think, as a starting point to try to shatter stigma and I'll just say this one more time. This is a key reframing. Based on that, you can say, look, people with mental health conditions, challenges and conditions, they're not weak, but they may be in a weakened state. And that gives respect to the human condition. The fact that somebody is struggling super hard with something and they're not being written off by society as being weak, but you realize they've been trying to battle this and get back, and it's a bit too much for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Unreal. I was taking notes. I have so much I want to comment on. By the way, I'm certain I've said this before, but it might have been in that podcast. Didn't get recorded. But I love metaphors. I use metaphors all the time in my work to help like non-Indigenous people understand why
Mm.
we value something or what it looks like to us. Use something they know to explain something they don't. It's a powerful tool. And your metaphor, I loved it because to the point of your guest that was the strongest man in the world, the point is like, yes, you're strong. So you do 700 of those push-ups,
Sure,
but
sure.
eventually you get pinned. And I'm going to do like
Yes.
10 or
Yeah,
15, right? So
that's
you're
that's right.
still a strong person. The end
Absolutely.
result is the same,
That's
right?
right.
So
That's
it
right.
just, the only thing that changes is how many you
Yeah.
do, right?
And if I can just mention, because I know, you're bringing together indigenous and non-indigenous
Yes.
communities. Like, I am not indigenous, but this is what I think is beautiful about this metaphor, because I'm not claiming the nuanced understanding of why cultures have, certain perceptions of mental health, and that's fine. This is not for me to say for
Yeah.
anyone else.
Yeah.
But what I will stand behind for everybody is that we're at the human level, regardless, we have breaking points, and this is one way to illustrate it.
Oh, you just got me thinking. Oh my God. Whoa, I might have to run with that because what I think, like thinking when I'm in a First Nation community, and even though we're known for our sharing circles, our healing circles, men are men. And a lot of them don't want to admit they're struggling, don't want to admit something is bothering them. They tend to bottle it up inside, might come out in different behaviors. But what I think where people might be missing it is they don't understand what the weights look like. So, for example, a man that is struggling in a remote First Nation community. So lack of supports, having someone to talk to is literally a weight that gets added to that barbell.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
poverty he's dealing with, the fact that his children are struggling with their mental health,
Yeah.
another weight, right? So,
Yeah.
and we get, and I know we've discussed this before, I happen to think one of the worst things that a human being can do to themselves, and we all do it to different degrees. I've learned not to do it as much as I used to, is comparison,
Yeah.
right? And when you compare yourself, well, if they can do it, I should be able to do it. And it's like two
No,
entirely different animals, two
that's
different
right.
people,
That's right.
different situations,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's another reason this metaphor works because
Yes.
as you said earlier, if your best effort is 10 repetitions,
Yep.
you should be applauded and then you should be supported. If somebody else's is 700, if somebody else is 700 and they do 10, then that's where you could perceive this person really has to suck it up. They're
Yep.
not, but there's a tipping point when you're going to get nailed and pinned. And that's
Yep.
where you don't want to go that far and you want to get the support earlier. And that's where I was speaking to somebody last night who said, he grew up being with that. He said, look, he thinks there's too much whining now, too many people who don't need support who are asking and begging for help. And I said, that can be true in individual situations, but what this point is trying to make is there's also you can't just focus as if that's the picture across society. There unfortunately are suicides, many of them in many
Yep.
communities on a regular basis. There are serious mental health issues being dealt with by people and conditions that need regular monitoring and treatment. And so it's partly up to that individual, I think, to make those decisions. Like, I can handle it, I'm fine. But then at a certain point you're not, and at a certain point you need help. Like, I wouldn't have ended up in the hospital if I had been able to deal with things a bit earlier, get support earlier. People, just to tell you, and this is, I think, a good example too. Like, many people who would have seen me at the time thought, the guy's had a successful career, all of these things. He's married, he has a family, he's made some money, whatever. They said the guy doesn't need our help.
Yeah.
But they don't know because they look at me and some like, this is the way I know Geoff, and this is how he was, years ago. But, to the example of the strongest man in the world, if
Yeah.
you saw him shaking with a barbell, you'd think he was joking. There's no way you'd think that makes any sense. But it's just showing that he is in a difficult spot. Even the strongest man or woman in the world can end up being in a very difficult spot, and that's where we need to be aware and empathetic enough to know that it depends on what's going on in somebody's life at any given time.
Yeah, and exactly. It's not a constant, right?
Not a
It's
constant.
not that you're always struggling, but this,
No, no, no.
like, for example, grief is one of the, in my opinion, one of the heaviest weights that get added to the bar. Often you didn't see it coming. Like when I lost my mom, take me out at my knees, right? Like, and I am a strong person, but that was pinned,
Absolutely.
100%
Absolutely.
pinned. And I guess in that case, it was so bad that I couldn't deny it. Because what I was
Yeah.
going to say, you mentioned entrepreneurship and how that's not an easy road. I discovered recently, like, I love being an entrepreneur. I love the self-determination. I love the freedom. I work my tush off, but I love it. But I realize I am really bad at admitting the struggles, right? That I wasn't even calling it stress, right? Like it's just the challenges of the day. It's like, no, Sandy, right? And and you know as well as I do, it can get really
Oh yeah.
challenging. Even
Sure,
if
sure.
you know, give me 6 months, it'll be fine. But how do I get to Tuesday?
Mhm.
Right? Right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah,
Well, people aren't, we're all living different lives. And so
yeah,
people don't necessarily see what you're going through, right? And
yeah,
so, and if you don't share it, then it's a tough one. Or
yeah,
unfortunately, I have plenty of friends who have never been an entrepreneur and maybe they've been in a pretty steady career all their lives. So they can't even imagine, like it's hard for them. They're in a good place. They can't even imagine that
yeah,
you could be
yeah,
in a tough
yeah,
place. but that's where you have to open up the empathy. And if, again, that's why I hammer a very simple example and try to get people to do the bench press because they're going to see, they're going to see what it's like. All of a sudden, this is 45 pounds,
Yep.
but it feels like 300. And because it's 45, you can have your 7-year-old son or daughter come up and help you,
Yep.
and so there's a lot of ways to think about this.
What a valuable metaphor and visual that is to help people realize even your child can help you through this
Yes,
hard
yes,
time,
yes,
right?
yes,
And
yes,
I
yes,
know
yes.
I was like a single mom. I was 25 when I became a single mom of a 2 and a 4-year-old, and I was working full time and exhausted. We're going to talk about your sleep apnea in a second. But I remember, and that's exactly this metaphor, when I would come home from work, and I mean, I was done. I had given it all. I was exhausted, and now I got to make dinner and entertain these two little people.
Yeah,
What I would do is go for a walk with them, and I would tell my friends that for just a half an hour, I want to look at the world through their eyes.
yeah,
I want to enjoy the dandelion. I want to throw rocks into the water. And it was the way to take the weight off, to
yeah,
just
absolutely.
spend time with them, right?
Absolutely. It's beautiful. And that in the organization I started, Pin to Purpose,
Yeah,
two means you can't go it alone. You do need to be, I mean, it's not all about trying to be Superman, Superwoman. You
yeah,
need help. But the purpose part ties into what you're saying because, when I was in the hospital, every single person is talked to every day, and everybody's going to be asked if they've had suicidal ideation. It's a fact every day.
yeah,
And the purpose that people have, and it's often their children or their family, is the North Star people are trying to cling on to some purpose, right? And that's up to them.
yeah,
But it's so critical because if you're in a bad place, you've got to be thinking of brighter days ahead or reasons you care about some people or some things,
yeah,
and that's you know
yeah. You mentioned severe undiagnosed sleep apnea, and I swear my heart went out to you because I get teased about this by my friends. I religiously do between 7 and 8 hours of sleep a night because I literally can't do my life otherwise. I don't have the
sure, sure,
energy, I don't have the patience. I swear it feels like I have zero coping skills. Everything feels overwhelming. And one of, I guess, the saddest realizations I had was how much of the years I parented my children that I was exhausted from working full time and trying to be the parent. Like I'm a much better grandma and parent now, largely because I have that restorative sleep. So when you
yeah,
said that, like I would get seriously depressed if I was
yeah,
lacking sleep. So like
sure,
I was like, people
yeah.
out there,
Well,
if you're minimizing sleep, don't do that. Yeah.
absolutely. No, I think anybody who has any thoughts about that should go and see their doctor and should look into it, and because that's critical for your well-being.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not anything I even play with anymore. And something's going to happen. Yeah, family event or whatever. There are times that I don't get that sleep and I feel it. Like I'm not enjoying the next day. I'm not me. It's like, yeah, it's so, so serious. One of the things that came to mind while you were talking, and we can debate this to the nines. You know that phrase out there, and Kelly Clarkson made a song out of it, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think when I hear that, but so many things are killing people, right?
That's
Like,
right.
forget
Unfortunately, yeah.
that everyone's trying to, it's just going to make me stronger, but that minimizes how bad it hurts,
Oh yeah, sure.
right?
Yeah. No, I think of quite a few things around that and different analogies. Like some people will say, look, the difference between a successful entrepreneur and others is somebody who just doesn't give up and pushes on and pushes on. But then, you can think of somebody who's digging for gold or something and then just keeps digging and realizing that the rocks above are getting shakier and shakier, but there must be gold there. And then it's like, boom.
Yeah.
Or somebody who's out on a boat. It's like, okay, well, I've got we'll just press through this storm, it's going to break sometime. Well, no, it might break your frigging boat. Get out of the storm,
Yeah.
so, you don't want to be pushed to the point where it actually could kill you. And sometimes it can, and sometimes the weight is way too much for too long. And so I think there's a role for that quote. I think it's just that people have to watch out that they're not thinking, to again go it alone. That if they just keep, pressing through despite, how severely depressed they are, or how much anxiety they have, or other conditions that are making life very, very tough. Um,
Yeah.
it's so it's ideally not getting in that situation, and you hopefully you can improve that by, sharing your story, getting a hand up.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not the right time. Like I also think of examples like, if a CFL football player breaks a leg, do you call them weak? They're not weak. They're in a weakened state, right? If somebody in a war zone gets shot, is
Yeah.
this man or woman weak? They're not weak. They're in a seriously weakened state. They have to get out of there.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to get out of places because, we're shutting down.
Yeah.
And
100%. Yeah. I had to giggle when you said the football player analogy because years ago I had the chance to go to an Argonauts game in Toronto. And it was one of those you got to go down on the field and meet the cheerleaders and the team. I didn't know they made human beings that big. Like
yep,
when you
sure.
get close to one of those players, it's like, and
Yep,
like you said, how many of those professional athletes have mental health challenges,
sure, sure.
have a physical challenge? When something challenges your identity,
Absolutely.
then that's when the bottom falls out, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And back
No,
to your entrepreneur analogy, like I say to everyone, there is no year 17, which is what I'm in with my business now, without year one, two, and three. All the
absolutely.
challenges that came from one, two, and three, I had to do those to get
Yeah,
here.
sure.
But if nothing changes, nothing changes. If I look back at the seminars I was offering back then and the price I was doing them for, I would have starved to death a long time ago, right? So you can't, if you're struggling, something has to change. You talk to
Yes,
that other person, you get a new idea, you change how you're delivering something. Like you said, doing the exact same thing over and over is only going to exhaust you, right?
yep,
If
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not working, it's not working. Try another angle. Like, and
Right.
I love bouncing ideas off people. Like my friends know my phrase is, okay, I got a crazy idea. And that's often the subject line of my email. I got a crazy idea. And every single one of them is like, oh, here we go. What's she doing this time? But I love them and I know they're going to be honest. They're going to
Yep,
say, did you think about this? Like they have saved me so much money over the years. It's like, did you realize blah blah blah? It's like, oh yeah, that would have died. Okay,
yep,
no, don't
yep,
do that, right? Like you have to have that someone, whoever it is. And if it's an entrepreneur, I highly suggest find another entrepreneur.
yep, yeah, yeah.
Like you said, 9 to 5 people don't understand us. They
No,
don't
no,
get
absolutely.
us. They're like, why don't you just go get a job kind of thing? Entrepreneurs understand us, right?
Yep, yep. Well, I had a fantastic opportunity recently, and I think it's even, I don't know if it's since our last podcast, but the Business Development Bank of Canada is doing a lot of stuff for mental health for entrepreneurs, and they had a couple of roundtables, one in English, one in French. They
Right.
invited, 6 entrepreneurs to each, and I was one of the English entrepreneurs, and they videoed this, and they're going to use clips during the year to promote well-being and mental health for entrepreneurs in Canada, and they partner with Unsinkable, which is Silk and Lauman's foundation
Okay.
to support mental health, and that foundation is all about storytelling. So they want all of us to be more involved in storytelling, and I would say, I have a very strong view, like there are different thought leaders out there, or people who are almost like guru-ish, let's say, but I think at the end of the day, the types of ideas that you put out there, you've got to be, you've got to to try to help people to find their own solutions, right? Or ask them questions and they're looking at their own reflections, not relying on today I'm going to tell you like it is, and tomorrow I'm going to tell you how it's done. And there can be some of that, but I think overall the key thing is to help people help themselves.
Uh,
And
I I couldn't agree more with you. So I get that from my mom. My mom used to always say, I'm not going to be here for your entire journey. So you can't depend on me. And she would help me figure out my own responses. And I do that with my company. I don't want anyone dependent on me. To me, that's super scary, right? I don't want responsibility for your life. But based on what I know, I can help you find the path that works for you. It's going to be
right,
totally
right.
different than mine, right? So I 100%, I hear those same messages, do it this way, and it's like, no, 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 no. You touched on something that I do talk about a lot in my work, and that's self-talk. Because, and I say it all the time in seminar, that if you were to Google how to be successful, one of the top four suggestions is going to be master your self talk, right? That you can't win the race if you keep telling yourself you're going to lose, right? And you know this, I've shared this with everyone. I'm a 10-year domestic abuse survivor. And one of the things I realized fairly quickly, with the help of a loving elder, was that for people that are in that situation, the abuse continues long after you leave. But now it's the self talk, right? You're continuing all of that horrific stuff. And it wasn't until, by the way, I don't do any of that anymore. There are ways to work past it. There are tools and exercises you can do. Now, if I do something goofy, instead of saying, Sandy, you're so stupid, it's like, Sandy, you were rushing. Sandy, you're hungry. Go eat something. Sandy, you need a break. That's positive, helpful self talk. And people think, at least the people I've met, they don't think we can tell that they have negative self talk. And it's like, honey, the way you talk about yourself out loud
That's right.
kind of hints. So if you're willing to say that publicly, what the heck are you saying privately, right?
Sure. I think the energy and vibrations and everything are, you
Yeah,
can tell that
yeah,
to a certain degree the frame of mind somebody is in.
yeah,
And I think that's another complex issue. And it again, I'll keep going back to the pinned example, but when somebody is hurting or is down or is suffering, then they are again, they're
yeah,
carrying a lot of weight, and so
yeah,
their vibrations and their level of communication is not where it should be or where it would be when they're healthy.
yeah,
And so for them trying to get their life in order or trying to get a new job and I experienced that firsthand, with my own recovery, like I just didn't have it because I needed to process what had happened and I needed to regain confidence about my own self-image and stuff. But that holds a lot of people back. And I think it holds people back in addiction and stuff. I mean, the podcast that I try to have a variety of people on with all sorts of different lived experience. And if you're trying to break through with some serious addiction, then your optimal self is not really on display for others to when you're out in the world. And so that slows you down from going to where you could be when you're healthy.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. And it's a pet peeve of mine I talk about all the time because Canada loves to point out the low or the high unemployment rates in First Nation communities, right? They
Mm.
always go for the you don't have a job. And it's like they can't get out of bed, right?
Yeah,
Like,
sure. Absolutely.
right? You're focusing on this, but like you're
Right.
missing
Right.
the point.
Right.
It's not because they're lazy or don't want to be better. They have no idea. They're pinned,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
until we talk about that, like you said, they're not even at that stage
Right.
yet, right?
Right. Well, I
Yeah.
want to bring up something else, and in my own website and in the semi web or sorry discussions and workshops and stuff I'd like to do more of. I think we've spoken about this, but I had an older relative named Alf who lived to 105, And he's on this website, and so on my website, and so in terms of like trying to help people up on a healing journey, there is the reframing, there is the fact that, if you look at this bench press metaphor, people aren't weak, but they can be in a weakened state, which is very understandable. But then, I used to spend time with my relative, and then, I have a selfie with him when he was 102, and it was like the first selfie he'd ever taken, the first selfie I'd taken. We're both laughing. And but he had a routine at 105. He was in an elder care home, and every morning when he woke up, the first thing he would do is he'd walk over to the mirror in his bathroom and he'd look at himself and he'd go, "Oh, good, you're still here." And he would also say, "Happy birthday, Alf," every day, because every day is an anniversary of each of our births. However, the traditional way to celebrate is once a year. But if you're 105, you realize the odds of you even making it to the next one are not super high. And so why don't you celebrate? Now, where I'm trying to tie this in, I have another belief, and I'm trying to work on this as one reference point. Again, I'm not claiming magic solutions. I'm claiming just different things you can think of that may be helpful. But I believe that certain people have to remember, the fact that we need to somehow get to the point of celebrating whatever time we have here on the planet. And if you have different choices you can make, and you can get stuck in that weakened state, and you can be letting time pass and everything. But he was saying too, like, as long as you're still on the stage, you have a chance. He knew what I went through, and he said, I wouldn't worry about it. Like, and everybody he grew up with was not around anymore. And if he had succumbed to peer pressure or other people telling him how he lived his life, you realize the reality over time is no, it's not, it's my life. So I've got to be true to myself. So I'm just saying, like, in addition to thinking about, look, don't be so hard on yourself. You're in a weakened state. Also realize that, you still have the gift of time, and people
Yeah.
can reinvent themselves. People can, have another, another chapter and something quite different. And I'm looking to see if I can show you, but there's even like the red bike that's part of my logo, and there's a story behind that, and I have it here. If I can get off of the blur thing, I would show it to you. So let's see if I can find it, because otherwise you won't see it. But
Do you know how to change your background?
yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for. I think I see maybe blur background. Okay, so maybe it's gonna work here.
There's
Okay,
your background. Okay.
let me show you this and tell you the story, and it's on my website. It's part of the logo. But so this is a red bike, okay?
Okay.
And it's made of garbage, pieces of garbage, like a Nescafe can lid, an aerosol top. It's all garbage. And what happened was, I used to mentor a social entrepreneur in
Okay.
Ghana, West Africa. And the story there was, this gentleman was an IT business person. His sister was quite ill, needed a blood transfusion, couldn't get it, and passed away unnecessarily, like if she could have
Yeah.
gotten the blood. So he started a social enterprise to, collect blood from people across the country, especially rare blood types. And he was gamifying it so that people would participate. So I was involved in mentoring him, and I took two of my kids to Ghana to see him. And we went to, in the market, we saw a garbage picker who had several kids, but was supporting his family by going to the garbage dump and finding discarded, shattered pieces of garbage and making beautiful things. So the story here, as part of Pin to Purpose, is too, like, it's hoping for red bike moments. Like, everybody has
Wow.
shattered pieces at times, but that doesn't mean that it's over. It means that they can be put together into something more beautiful in the future, but you're not going to do that completely on your own. And then there's one other story which is really interesting, and I think powerful, but and maybe some viewers, and maybe you know this, Sandy. I only learned it, by chance. But one year after I took two of my kids to Ghana, I went on a trip with one of my other kids to who plays a lot of guitar. We went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. We went to the
Wow.
Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville, and we stopped in Louisville, Kentucky on the way. We went to the Muhammad Ali Center. And this is fascinating. I think, everybody in the world should know this, and a lot of people do, but I didn't. And so Muhammad Ali would never have been the greatest, would never have been the world champ, would never have been a boxer unless he had what he calls a red bike moment. And the red bike was his parents at 12 years old gave him a red Schwinn bicycle, and then he locked it up, or maybe he left it. It got stolen in front of the town fair type of thing. So he went to see the police at 12. He was super upset. This was his prized possession. And the police officer he went to see, he said he wants to find that guy and beat him up and everything. And the police officer said, look, I'm a boxing coach and I want you to come with me to my gym tomorrow. And we're going to try to help you to find the bike, but you've got to get this frustration out. And I don't recommend you go after anybody unless you know how to fight. So Cassius Clay went to the gym. This was a
Wow.
top boxing coach, and he never left. And over the years, he became the greatest. Now, so at the Muhammad Ali Center, they invite people from around the world to send in their own red bike moments. What was a massive setback you had that changed your destiny? And it doesn't have to be a life changing always. It could be any number of things, but significant to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes people get fired, and yet then it gave them a chance to get a really interesting job or something that they wouldn't have had. Sometimes people have a divorce and it's the worst thing in their life at the time, but then they meet somebody they wouldn't have met. And so the red bike that's in the logo of Pin to Purpose is hoping that people can not only realize that shattered pieces can be put together in a more beautiful future, but that, your greatest setback can lead to your greatest kind of opportunity or triumph. And so these are nice stories, but they, shine the mirror on yourself.
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting anybody can use these as reference points and look in the mirror and say, I'm super low now, but you know what? I am still here. And this 105-year-old reminded me I have some time. It may take me a while, but I want to take advantage of whatever time I have here. And, and the greatest used his biggest setback and good luck to find a path nobody would have ever heard of him. He would not have been a boxer.
That's like a mic drop moment. That wasn't a story. That was incredibly powerful. That's a keynote speech. I hope you're doing that because that's,
I'm not doing it, but I'd like to. And
oh,
that's how you and I met with
yeah,
like Drew Branya, right? And I
yeah,
mean, wonderful person and people, and to be able to help speakers. I
yeah.
haven't been on the calls as much as you, but I mean the wonderful work that they're doing. But no, I would love to say that. I would love to speak about that because absolutely. And I want to, again, it's turn the mirror on somebody. Okay, this is the story. How does that relate to
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how that's what it is.
I'm sorry. My mind's just blown. That was so incredibly powerful. So before we run out of time here, like this is so incredible. So are you now doing like speeches or workshops or anything?
You know what? I have to be honest. I want to do it, and I'm kind of so I'm not doing the stuff that I'd like to do. I'm doing several different things, but I would really like to focus on that and go out there and talk to more people and have those opportunities and tell
Yeah.
these type of stories. Like I just recently again was on this panel with the BDC, and I just
Yeah.
recently was asked to be a storyteller with Unsinkable. Sorry. I would love to do it. And talk to you again off air and talk to Drew and everybody. I need to understand that more because I think I'm just somebody who hasn't connected the right dots right now. But
Yeah.
I'd love
And
to do it.
I definitely have some documents and templates that'll help you connect the dots because I know what it's like when you don't know. It just seems big and confusing and frustrating, but then you get the recipe and it's like five ingredients, what? Right? But without the recipe, it's confusing, right? So we'll definitely talk about that because so I don't know if you know this. Yes, this goes out on my YouTube channel, but I also send it to my email list. And I know the people on my list. And I know there's going to be communities and groups like, I mean, I'm an Indigenous woman that face the challenges that Indigenous women face every day is very serious, but our men have challenges too, Indigenous
Sure.
and non. And I just know there's going to be people that want to reach out to you. So for anyone watching,
Yep.
I'm definitely going to get Geoff's contact information from him. I'll make sure it's in the notes underneath the video. When I send it out to my list, I'll make sure to include that because
Yep.
I know in Anishinaabe culture, so Ojibwe culture, we believe, and you just proved it. That's why I want to say this. We believe that there's no more powerful story than your own, right? So the experiences you had going and finding out about Cassius Clay's story and your, your older relative in those stories, your own experiences with being pinned. That's the story. That's the stuff that resonates, right? It's not, and we know this, it's not the super polished delivery or whatever. People can't even relate to those people because it's like, I'm not super polished. I don't see anything here. They identify with the struggles. And the fact that we're here talking about a struggle in our past gives them hope because it shows them if we made it past it, so can they. Right. So,
No, I thank you so much. I would love to talk to anybody who's interested. I mean, I've wanted to. I would love to
yeah.
speak in prisons. I would love to speak in all sorts of communities, and I have very lots of different human reference points that are, I during university, I worked. They was call it like a prep beneficiary, right? Because my
Yeah.
my my mom worked at a center for disabled kids, and I did a lot of volunteer work there. But I worked with three boys with muscular dystrophy. And
Uh,
so, I had these 8-hour shifts, occasionally 16 and once 24 when people weren't available. But, with boys with muscular dystrophy in their late teens, early 20s, the life expectancy is often not much longer than that, if that long. And, these are people who have a functioning brain and are
yeah.
just like you and I, but they really can't move, so they're asking me, can you move my hand? Can you do this? Can you feed me? Can you bathe me? Can you do this stuff? And I say that with massive respect, right? I don't say that in any negative way. And they've been dealt a tough hand.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But they're as human as you and I. And I think those type of stories too, I mean,
Yeah.
it's always stayed with me. Like
Yeah.
reminding like they were taken off the off the stage early. They had no way out. They didn't
Yeah.
have the possibility of 105 years or 75 years, right? So when anybody is dealt a hand which they know that is finite, the BS, I was gonna say a word, I don't know if you want on your podcast, but anyway,
You could have
the
said it, but
that's
yeah.
right. The BS is gone. Like,
Yeah.
let's be real here. I've got a certain amount of time, and hopefully this stuff falls away of playing games or whatever. But ideally, we find that a bit earlier too, so that we don't
Yeah.
kind of then say, okay, you've got 3 months to go. Well, I had 30 years before that I didn't really focus on anything because I thought the game was endless, you know? So how can that also translate into looking in the mirror? And
Yeah.
and it's not all about any of us. It's about our piece of the and role in all of this and the community that we can bring up. So no, I would love to speak. Like I said, I'd speak in prisons or in different communities. Through my work in impact investing and sustainable investing, I've had some clients in places like Wendake, and I'm just trying to think quite far up north in
Yeah.
northern Alberta, and and different indigenous communities. My father. Yeah, he worked in the Arctic in the 1920s. So I have these pictures. Like I had an older father, right? So I have
Yeah.
these are other parts of the story possibly. I have these
Yeah.
glass slides of black and white of, snow over his
Wow.
head in July, but it's up like in the Northwest Territories and it's so I'm just somebody who loves life, although it doesn't mean it's always easy by a long shot for me either.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, I love people, and I think by going into certain examples which are universal, but then are saying, I'm not making any comment on somebody's culture. That's not my place. I have
Yeah.
no right to do that. I have an opportunity to learn, but I all I can tell you is it doesn't matter what community you're from, you will get pinned if you do this exercise.
Yeah.
and then throw in real life situations. And then is there anything we can all learn from this?
Wow, that's so amazing. Refresh my memory. Are you in Quebec or Ontario?
I'm in Montreal, in Quebec. Yeah.
Okay, I thought so. So I don't know if the same thing exists, but I definitely have at least local connections with CMHA, which is the Canadian
Yeah.
Mental Health Association.
Yeah. Right.
That
Great.
was the first group I thought of because I know they support or attempt to support so many men that are struggling. And unfortunately, and this is not a judgment in any way, but often people in that type of work tend to be female, right? So to
Yeah.
be able
Sure.
to find like
Sure.
a strong man that, no one's going to look at you and think you look weak, right? So to
Yeah.
have someone like you being able to acknowledge and talk about these truths, I
Yeah.
could just
Yeah.
see that being so powerful and so encouraging to
No,
them, right?
I would love to do that. Like I said,
Yeah,
I'm gradually getting more and more aware of and connected and stuff. I've just been telling this story, my own podcast,
yeah.
it's getting a lot of momentum, and no, I would love to do that. And I'm gonna just mention to you, like it's a bit hard to see, but behind me on the dresser, you've got a picture of
I,
my dad, let's say in the Arctic, you've got the different carvings, right? I've always been passionate about the
yeah,
Inuit culture, and I remember looking for polar bears in Churchill, Manitoba years ago, which was also fun. And but
yeah,
in any event, and meeting different people, um, look, it's these are real stories, and I believe that people can feed off of them to just hopefully reflect in some more positive ways and be a little bit more kind to themselves.
yeah.
And then if that helps them on a healing journey, then I've kind of I'm passing the ball, and I'm happy to contribute as one piece of a massive puzzle, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I know when you were talking about when you only have 3 months left, or you're 106 years old and what are the odds, right? So I'm 62 now, and I'm constantly hearing from non-entrepreneurs, got to put that out there, that I need to start slowing down. And it's like, thank you. I love the face you just made. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, if anything, now I'm not wasting any more time. I'm
Right. I
doing the
agree with you.
important work. I'm getting those messages out there because I know I don't have 40 years to waste,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
No,
Thank you
I
for
I
agreeing with me. I was like,
absolutely. No, I'm always shocked. I think we've got it backwards. Like
yeah,
it's like, you have to, and I don't remember poems too well, but there are some beautiful poems about that, which are really like,
yeah,
your spirit is burning brightest as it flickers, because you have to appreciate time. So some people who want to slow down, I'm like you, I want to live more intentionally and more meaningfully. And
yes.
and you know,
Yeah, it's not, we don't waste time anymore. And I mean, like, I can spend an entire weekend with my family, and that's not wasted time, that's quality relationship time. But am I going to spend 3 days straight sitting on the couch watching TV? No, because that's not unless I'm with someone special, that's not going to be quality time, right? So, yeah,
I
yeah,
wanted to say, I have 4 kids. They're all in their 20s, and I worked at quite a few different camps or different,
yeah,
and with a lot of kids with a variety of disabilities. But I also would like to do more speaking for youth, because I think
yeah,
there are just one or two puzzle pieces they're missing sometimes, which is, in terms of their own purpose, or seeing ways they can contribute. And there's millions of ways young people can contribute, but they have to be sometimes reminded or invited,
yeah,
and then get them into established goal-oriented organizations, or as a volunteer and stuff. And it's a bit like, you're helping me now. You're maybe unpinning me from my own, why am I not speaking more? Well, I haven't properly connected the dots, and I haven't reached out enough, and I haven't applied for a bunch of stuff, or I haven't done enough of other people's podcasts. When I do my own, I try my best to bring out the best story of someone else, but they're not
yeah,
hearing what I'm telling you. The
yeah.
viewers are not hearing my story so much, because I'm
Yeah.
I'm the host.
Yeah. So, by the way, I am happy to send you the actual file of this.
Yeah.
So if you
Thank you.
wanted to put it on yours as well,
Yeah.
knock your
Right. Thank
socks
you.
off because they should hear your story. But also, we're coming to the end here, but you and I have to talk
Yeah.
because
Well, you have to be
in,
on my podcast as well.
oh, I can totally do that. I would love to do that. But in our communities, in First Nation communities, like often I'm asked to speak to youth, and I'm pretty good at connecting with young women, right? Because I have known the journey, but to connect with young men, I can just envision the most powerful workshop with you there with your bench press
Yeah,
equipment,
exactly. We're
and
gonna
it
bring the
would
bench.
appeal to them. It would resonate with them. Whereas, normally they see a poster and they could care less. But to
Yeah.
have that poster with that
Yeah.
bench press on it,
Yeah. That's
now you
right.
got their attention. So we got to talk about bringing
Yeah.
that
Wonderful.
together and
Wonderful.
making that
And
happen. So
And just to say it's a fun challenge, right? Because you
yeah,
get they get the kids to do as many as they can. So there's no shame if you were in last place, but if you did 50 or if you did 60 or you did 120, then you can also work on it to do more next time. So it's an
yeah,
endless challenge, right? And
yeah,
it's just doing your best and it's respecting others that they do have a breaking point. You
yeah.
don't put people on a pedestal as if they're superhuman. Some people can do a bit more than others in certain things and then they're not able to in others, but no, I would
Yeah.
love to do that, and that would be you make it fun too, right? It's supposed to be fun.
Exactly. And with youth, like my style, I tend because I do conferences a lot, right? So I'm standing there talking. I might show images, but that's about it. That's not a style that works with youth. It has to be interactive. It has to be engaged, right? I can just see that so working. But we have now done an hour. Can you believe that? And I'm so happy we recorded it this time. I am
Now, is this
absolutely
recorded?
thrilled.
I imagine, are you
I
sure
see
you pressed the button?
record. So yes, thank because last time that's what happened. I went to turn it off and it's like, why is it not there? Oh no. I am so thrilled that you were willing to do this again. I honestly believe that for the viewers who are wondering, this is way more powerful than the first version we
I agree
did,
with you. I agree with
right?
you. I think it's a perfect example out there, like people can, have a new chapter. You
Yeah,
it's there was a reason why you didn't record. And the reason
100%.
is, you know, and
Yeah,
this is and you're helping me to hopefully get my voice out there a bit more with others and love to do that.
yeah.
So no, I'm very glad that you could have also said I didn't record it. Well, let's go on to the next guest,
Yeah.
so there we
Yeah.
go.
I wouldn't do that. By the way, do you have my email address? This is probably
Yes,
an
I think
after
I
the.
think so. Or I
Okay.
can, yeah,
So
yeah,
just make sure, send me an email with all your links, all of your connections to your
right,
website
right.
and everything, your podcast, everything. So let's get your name out there because your story needs to be out there. It can help a lot of people. So,
Thank you. Well, and thanks for all that you do. It's amazing, and I look forward to hearing more about your journey and all the great things you're doing on my podcast too. So,
yes, you're going to have to send me an invite. Let's figure out a date to do that. Okay, you take care. Thank you so, so much. Talk to you
yeah,
soon.
thanks, Annie. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.